Hey everyone, it's Ryan. Tonight I'm going to be showing you how I make my peanut brittle. Okay, to start out with, I do have a nonstick pot here. You could either use just a regular stainless steel pot or a nonstick, whatever you wanted. Um, I'm also going to add to that 1/2 cup of water. So 1/2 cup of water. I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat on like a medium high. And then we are going to need 1 cup of light corn syrup. Okay. Make sure to get all of that in there. Now, this is something that you are definitely going to want to have like the rest of your ingredients out and ready. Um, like I have my peanuts over here and my baking soda. We're also going to add, these are 1/4 cup, measuring cup. So we're going to add 2 cups of sugar. Six, 7, and 8. Okay, and I do have a candy thermometer over here ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make sure that all of this sugar gets some of that water touching it so that we don't have any dry sugar in here. And then we're just going to let this sit and let it boil. We're going to do that before we add the butter. So let this come to a boil and then we will add the butter. I am going to rinse this spatula so that there is not any crystallized sugar on it. And we will wait for this to come to a boil, and then we'll get started with the rest. You can see that it's starting to boil around the edges, but you really want the bubbles to really start coming from the center as well before you add your butter. All right, so I am going to go ahead and add the butter, and be very careful when you do this. Hopefully I don't do what I'm telling you not to do, but you don't want to splash the syrup on you. So just be very careful when adding your butter. Let that start to dissolve, not dissolve, melt. Now we're going to stir and heat this to 230 degrees, which, if you look at your candy thermometer, is soft. I swear, sometimes these things are so hard to read. It's just under soft ball stage. I'm going to wait until the butter melts before I add my thermometer. This is going to bubble up a bit, so make sure you have a tall enough pan. Now, one thing I will say is I have had trouble in the past finding raw peanuts. I like to use raw peanuts, not dry roasted. It does make a difference. If you have had the dry roasted and that's how you prefer it, not dry roasted. That might be right. Anyways, the roasted peanuts, that's your call. I prefer it this way. It's the way we've always done it. But if you do have trouble finding them, like I have here, I will put a link. I bought some on Amazon, and I feel like they were a pretty good price. So I will put a link down below for those. I'm going to put my candy thermometer in. Make sure you know, I'm not being funny, but make sure you know how to read your thermometer before you put it in there, because sometimes, like this one, the line is kind of hard to read exactly where it is and what the numbers are. So just make sure that you know how to read your thermometer, and make sure that you get a thermometer like this one has the glass surrounding the little true thermometer inside, so it's not touching the bottom of the pan. And make sure you are stirring your mixture. That way, you know, you're getting a correct reading on your thermometer. You're not just getting one spot of the mixture. See how quickly that came to a quick boil once you added the butter. Like I said, you want to, once you add the butter, once the sugar starts boiling, you really need to pay attention to this, because it can scorch or it can go bad quickly. So at 230 degrees, we are just going to keep stirring until it gets to 280. So you can just gonna let this hang out. We have just a little bit more. So it's at 230 now. So we're just gonna keep stirring until we get to 280, which is soft crack stage. So once it gets to soft crack stage, we will add our peanuts, and you can always do these tests. So right now, it's just shy of soft ball stage. So I'm going to make sure you can see this. But you can, this is how my mom always did it. She didn't use a thermometer. So be careful, but you can take a little bit of this and add it. So you can see that it did, sorry, I had to find it. It did go to the bottom. Let's see. I'm not going to be able to reach it. It is holding together, so it is at the softball stage right now. But we want to let it go to the soft crack stage. And peanut brittle is one that definitely takes a while to get up to the right temperature. And then you add your peanuts and it drops the temperature down. So you just have to reheat it up to the correct temperature. You could use a digital thermometer as well, but you have to be careful because you don't want it to, well, you don't want to burn your hand. I do much prefer a digital thermometer just because you get a more exact reading and you're not having to eyeball it on these other thermometers. So we're at around 240. So still sitting right around 240. I'm just going to take that out for now. All right. So we are now at 280. So I'm adding the peanuts and we will see the temperature drop. So you just keep stirring your peanuts because they are making this thicken up. They are making it thicken up because, they're a little cooler, especially might have been sitting on this stone countertop, so they were quite a bit cooler, but you can see that it's starting to loosen up. And sorry, I'm trying not to stick my arm directly in front of the camera, but so it's going to take this mixture a little while to heat back up. Yeah, we cooled back down to around 260. So we got to get it to heat back up. And now we are shooting for 305 for the temperature. So that is hard crack stage. So this is when you will make sure that you get the perfect bite for your peanut brittle. So you don't have a chewy peanut brittle and you don't have one that's going to break your teeth. So a lot of that is honestly from experience. It's a lot of in the color of the peanut brittle. We will go by the temperature as well. But once you make this enough, you will just figure out what it's supposed to look like and know that it is ready. Because sometimes, even though the thermometers are pretty exact, something sometimes is just a little different about your mixture and it is ready to go before the thermometer says it is. And if you let your peanut brittle go a little bit too far, it might taste burnt. So you just have to watch it and be ready to go as soon as you need to move on to the next step. So the next step will be adding 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And that is when it reaches 305. So at 305, we will turn off the heat, add the baking soda, and then I have a sheet pan over here lined with a Silpat. You could use parchment paper as well. I like to use the Silpats because they're reusable and usually whatever you put on it pops right off. So I do like to use those. So yeah, you just make sure that you have all of that together. So right now I can tell you that the peanuts are starting to get toasty. We are about 10 degrees away from where we need to be. You can see the color has changed a little bit. We're starting to get a tiny bit stringy when you pull your spatula up. And make sure you are using a high heat spatula or a wooden spoon, something like that, because you don't want to use metal because you have to hold on to this while stirring the whole time. And some spatulas are not heat resistant, and you do not want to melt a spatula into your peanut brittle that you have worked so hard on. So this is getting close. You can see the colors changing. At this point, When it really decides to change, it's going to change fast. So keep an eye on your thermometer. You'll notice I keep having to move it so that I can see it because the peanuts keep moving it around. Starting to get caramelly. You'll know that it's ready once you see it sort of, it'll string. Like it'll look like a little piece of thread off of your spatula. Just did it. So let this go for another second. I doubt you can see it, but as it's dripping, there's like a little piece of the caramel that's sort of floating up, almost like cotton candy. Like it's a little tiny thread. All right, I do not want to let this go anymore. So put that in my water, turn off my heat, add 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and this is going to bubble up. I have a hot pad here. I'm going to move the camera over, get some things out of the way. It will set up fast. Okay, you could sort of see just in the amount of time that I left it sitting there, it had started to caramelize a little more on the bottom. And I maybe should have poured this onto 2 pans. I think that's actually what my recipe said. Oh, I just got some on my rug. So I am just going to have some thicker peanut brittle, and that'll be okay. Spread it out as much as you can. Be very, very, very careful with this. Like I said, I wasn't thinking at all because I know that this recipe says to get 2 sheet pans out, but I did not. So use 2 sheet pans when you do it because you should see more of the peanuts up top than the sort of toffee bits of it. So I'm going to let this cool on my counter. And then once it is cool, it will crack. We'll use a knife to crack it up and try some. Okay, so the peanut brittle has been cooled for a while now, and you can actually see over here whenever I picked up the pan, it actually cracked a little. So when you pick up your pan, this is on a steel pat. It'll be the same even if you put your peanut brittle on parchment paper. If you twist it a little, it'll sort of release if it was stuck to the pan on the sides. And then, like I had said in the other part of the video, I should have split this into 2 pans. So this is a little thicker than it should be because I ended up putting that entire batch in this one pan, and that was my own fault, but it's going to be fine. It's just going to be a little thicker than normal. So you can see from the edges. You could turn this out and it would crack all over. I just like to take the end of a knife and just kind of crack it here and there. And then you can just take and pick up the pieces and hope that the peanuts don't fall out every time you pick up a piece, but they will fall out. That is just fine because these are delicious as well. But just like the toffee and everything, I have like a little baggie that I'm going to put these in. I've already started making up my little gift bags that we're going to be handing out, and our party is fast approaching, so I'm excited that we have all of this done now. I've made a few more batches of different things but I'm glad that we are getting this out of the way now because Christmas is like 2 weeks away right now. So we have it done in enough time that we can spread it out to everybody that we want to and not have to be rushing at the last minute. Oh, and I did set this on a cooling rack to get it up off my counter so it wasn't too hot on the counter. But this is another one of my favorites. This time of year, my teeth don't necessarily like it, but that's okay. So there we go. Just a cute little bag and the perfect amount to give to somebody. So as you can see how little that took just to do this bag. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this and let me know in the comments if you make any of this candy this year. Bye.